Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Lucore Automotive. Today you find me in the truck. I'm off making another bad decision. For all of you AMC people, this one's for you. Well, if you've paid any attention to the video with the 304 and with my 79 AMX, you know that I had a little bit of a problem with the used motor that we put in the car to get it running again. And it was kind of disheartening. So I got online and I was talking with a bunch of people on the AMC forums and on AMC groups on Facebook. And the question became, do you build a 304? Do you build a 360? What do you do? And most people, the answer is just throw the 304 away, put a 360 in it. Well, if you paid any attention to the last couple of videos, I ended up taking apart the 304 that was originally in that car, and it's in way better shape than what we thought, and it looks like it's going to get built. But I do have a plan B, and that's what brings me out here today to look at this. Time to make another bad decision. This is an AMC 360. Interested? Stick around. So obviously, parts donor car, I don't need any of this. I don't need any of that. What I'm after is just this 360. And the nice thing about this particular 360 is it has a 4-barrel intake manifold and a 4-barrel Edelbrock carburetor on it. So in my world, if I decide to make this 304 work, I could steal this carburetor and this intake manifold and put it on my 304 with my fancy schmancy old new working pistons and have a pretty good little 304. Or if it ends up being that the 304 doesn't work out, I'm going to tear this thing back down and see how good this 360 is and then maybe build it. Or I'm going to do both, which is what probably is going to happen. So I'm not entirely sure what's going to end up happening with a 304. We'll see what happens with that. But this one is one of those situations of, I had spoken with this gentleman and he had this available. We struck up a deal and it makes sense. Realistically speaking, I'm getting a good deal because I really need that 4-barrel intake manifold anyway, and buying one brand new is pretty expensive. Plus the carburetor, it makes sense. Whether I end up using this 360 for this car or who knows what else, it is what it is. We'll see. But the nice thing is AMCs are pretty much Legos as far as being able to take one out, stick one in, swap parts back and forth. This is admittedly a much better motor than the 304 is, and all you AMC guys already know that. So we're going to get this carcass loaded on the back of the trailer and get this thing back to Columbus and take it apart, clean it, see what all we got. All right, little redneck engineering to get this thing loaded. This does have a positive traction rear end also, which is going to be something I may or may not ever use, but it's there. There you go. It's a carcass. No chances I ever have to rebuild this car. It's being a parts donor and it's going to the scrapyard. And hey, look, absolutely identical front suspension components to my 1979 AMX. Ha-ha! Without any sketchy unloading at all, my beautiful 1973 AMC Ambassador is home. Now, as I said before, the reason I purchased said 1973 Ambassador is for that 360 that's underneath the, well, it would be a hood. That 360 is what I want. So, previously you guys have seen me tear down a 304 for my 1979 AMX. Well, I've gotten on the forums and on the Facebook groups and talked to a bunch of AMC people, and everybody has said, don't build the 304, just stick a 360 in it. It's a much better motor. Now, I will agree with you, it is a much better motor. There's a whole lot better aftermarket support for the 360. It's a much better platform to build, especially for power, than the 304. Now, a lot of people would say, well, just stick a 390 or a 401 in it. Well, I'm going to be using this on a road race course, and I'm going to be giving it a lot of abuse. And 390s and 401s are A, hard to come by, B, really expensive. And I would feel really, really stupid blowing up a very expensive 401 or 390 build. Whereas I can make a pretty decent motor out of that 360. Now with that said, this is a 1973 360, so it is a smog era 360. Low compression, generally terrible, but I don't really care. And we're gonna get into that a little bit down the road. Essentially, what really turned me onto this is this. Now, it may be kind of hard to see because of this air cleaner that's sitting on here, which is, by the way, an OEM original air cleaner. There's a 4-barrel Edelbrock carburetor on this, and underneath that carburetor is a 4-barrel Edelbrock aluminum AMC Performer intake. So, typically speaking, if I were to go out and buy said intake and carburetor, I'd already have $500 or $600 in it, for the most part, especially if I'm buying them brand new. The Edelbrock intake manifold, it's not like a part that goes bad, so I'm not real worried about that. That's $350 brand new. I can clean this one up, and it's got some patina to it, so I feel like it's had a good life. So $350 for the intake manifold, all right, whatever. The carburetor, we'll see if I use it. I'm not a huge fan of Edelbrock carburetors, but we'll see. And it is a 4-barrel. If I have to get it rebuilt, I have to get it rebuilt. We'll see when we get there. But worst case scenario, I've got an extra Edelbrock carburetor. The exhaust manifolds on this are smog era with the little air tubes on them. Not going to reuse those. All of the accessories have been removed off the front of the motor. So I don't need any of those anyway because I have them on my other car. So essentially, what I need to do now is I need to get the engine, transmission, drive shaft, exhaust, rear end out of this car. And then this thing is going to get recycled. What I'm going to do with this 360, I'm not sure yet. Let me keep thinking about that. Time for me to start taking things apart. Now, one thing I did not do, which I've been burnt on in the past, is to verify that this is actually a 360. It is originally a 360 car. The stamp on the side of it from the factory says 360 on the fender well, so it's supposed to be a 360. There's supposed to be a block mark on the edge of this thing somewhere near the motor mount that says 360. Doesn't say 360 anywhere on the block, right? Yes, it does. It's inside the motor mount. Let's see if I can get you a view of that. Right there. So this is indeed a 360. So I didn't get hosed. The gentleman I purchased this from actually was a gentleman off of Facebook. Real nice guy. We went back and forth the last 2 months while I was debating whether or not I should buy this. The answer is I shouldn't have bought this, but I did anyway. And yeah, real straightforward dude. He was great about helping me load this thing up. We had a pretty sketchy loading process, as you could imagine, but we did it what we needed to do. And yeah, so far so good. A lot of rusty, crusty, corroded bolts. Hopefully this thing comes apart. Exhaust is out. Wow. So literally nothing was supporting this thing. None of the trans mount bolts were tight, so we just ripped the trans mount right out of the body when I did that. And the only thing that was holding this thing basically in the car was the exhaust. Well, that's different. So fortunately the motor mount bolts are still in there nice and tight, otherwise this thing could have spun down and hit me and done all kinds of damage to me. So, crisis avoided. Don't do what I do. Now that I look at it, the engine's barely even in the car. This bolt's broken off. It's only got one bolt in there. And this has got two bolts that I don't know. So even the engine cradle is almost falling out of the tire. Yeah. I guess what's the saying from your grandpappy? Measure twice, cut once. In this case, look twice, screw up once. They never really show you this part on the TV show. When you're covered in grease and oil and dirt and rust and 40 years of disgusting. Never makes it on the TV show. Better idea. Use the proper tool for the job. This sucks. Okay, so that off. That off. Yeah.
Take too long to walk, you should walk and get them out.
Yeah. Okay.
Of the exhaust.
Exhaust is off. Due to challenges with the back end, what we're going to do here is we're going to drop everything out of the car and then lift the car up. So I'm going to put the transmission cross member back up in here, and then I'm going to lower the car, take the shocks off the back, cut the arms off because the bolts and the nuts in the back are destroyed and there's no way they're going to come loose. Even if I do get the bolts and nuts loose, it's going to be stuck in the bushing sleeves. Not interested in that. So we're just going to cut the arms off. I don't need the arms anyway. I'll deal with that later. But transmission cross member goes back in. This way this thing doesn't come flying out of the car. And yeah, hopefully I don't get hurt. So, transmission cross member is at least in. Should hold this thing in the car. I can let the trans jack down, put the transmission on the cross member. I can let the car down. Not gonna pull the drive shaft. We're gonna pull it all apart. At least that's the plan. No big deal, he says. I'll be out of here in 2 or 3 hours. Engine will be out. No big deal, he says. Yeah. All right. Jack stands underneath the rear end. Drop the rear end down on the ground. Cut out the arms. That'll allow the rear end to be completely loose. And then take out the cross member bolts and the engine support brace, which could be interesting because they're all different sizes of bolts. And then I could lift the whole body up, and the engine, transmission, drive shaft, rear end should still be sitting on the ground. At least that's how I see it working in my head. Probably should use eye protection for this. This could take a minute. One coil spring out. Two coil springs out. Okay, that gives me room to cut the final arm off the top of the pumpkin, and then the rear end's out. Okay, whole 4-link system is cut in half. So that's all loose, coils are loose, shocks are out. So I can lift the body, the rear end will stay on the ground. Now the next trick is going to be supporting the front end and taking out the engine cradle bolts. The one on the driver or on the passenger side has one bolt in it, which is not the correct bolt. The other one's broken off. So we'll see what happens with that. The other side looks like it has both bolts in there from the dawn of time. We'll see if they let go. If those all let go, I can lift this all up in the air and have my whole drivetrain sitting on the ground. And hopefully not see this thing completely shift weight. And yeah, we're not going to talk about that. Anyway, full disclosure, I have no idea if this is going to work. I think this thing is properly balanced. I've got the front cradle sitting on jack stands. I've got the rear axle tube sitting on jack stands. The drive shaft is still in between the transmission and the engine. So technically speaking, this should work. Okay, one out. So all I've got left is one, and I don't know if I can get on that because it's a different size. So technically speaking, all of that is loose. Now I do need to remove this control arm or unbolt it from here or just cut it in order to drop the front subframe off this thing because it's all attached. So what's on the back side of this? Got it! Whew. It's working! Other than this control arm, which doesn't seem to be wanting to completely pop loose and come out of there. I hate cars. My plan almost worked. So, while I was recharging the battery on my camera because this took longer than I expected to, I just cut it. Tired of screwing around with this thing, so I just cut the lower control arm. Don't care, don't need it. cut the strut rod. Don't care, don't need it. So now this is all nice and loose. So it should clear the engine mount all the way up here. This is the point where I either successfully look awesome or I don't. Or the car falls off the way. Either way, at least it'll be good YouTubes. Okay, rear end is out. I think I've done a thing. I think I've done a thing. Oh, we're catching on something. I think we're catching on the shifter linkage here. Oh. I'm an idiot. So when you're to this point, remember to take the bolts out of that transmission cross brace that you put back in. Stupid mistakes. But that's why you move slowly. Now I've got myself in a little bit of a pickle here. I can't go down and I can't go up. So I need to make sure all of my braces are where they need to be, because I don't know what's going to happen when I release this. It should tilt back this way. Should. But let me make sure I got all my engine braces where they need to be. Or it's just going to fall out. I'm going to go ahead and do my triumphant pose on this side. Yeah, that didn't work at all. Well, hopefully you guys all enjoyed a lesson on how not to take apart an old car and not to trust bolts and roasted holes. Don't do anything I just did. So I'm gonna go get the engine hoist and just pick this thing up now. But hey, the rear end's loose. Anyway, in an upcoming episode, I'm going to separate this transmission from that engine. I'm going to tear that engine apart and see just what's inside this 360. I'm also going to take off that intake manifold and clean it, because I'm probably going to use it on my 304 or maybe the 360, we'll see. But anyway, we're looking at it. This 360 is probably going to get built, so there is a 360 build project in the near-ish future, depending on what we find out about that 304. Big slice of humble pie. Anyway, hopefully it was at least entertaining. I got a big mess to clean up. Drop comments in the comment section below. Please do subscribe if you're not interested in this kind of thing. We usually do this the right way. Sorry. Anyway, hopefully it was at least entertaining. Click on that like button because you made it this far, so click on the like button. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye. I'm not ending my video that way. This is how it goes with hot rodding. It doesn't always go according to plan, and it usually takes longer than you expected it to. But honestly, I got the job done. Engine's out, transmission's out, rear end's out, everything's done that I needed to get done. Body's ready to go on the flatbed tomorrow. go off to scrap. You know what, guys? I'm sure you've all been there with me. You know how this goes. Unfortunately, somewhere along the lines, a lot of time when you run into those complications and those frustrations, and when things don't go according to plan, sometimes we give up. Sometimes we get just a little bit more dirty. Which way are you going to do it, guys? I suggest get a little bit more dirty. So engine and transmission are over there in the corner. I'll start working on those probably tomorrow. Rear end, I'm going to put back outside and let it hang out with all the extra other rear ends we have. And then, like I said, the body's going to go off to scrap. So that is truly how we're going to end this episode. With success. It had its moments of failure. Nobody was injured. It had its moments of stupidity. No one was injured. But at the end of the day, it's all done. Time for me to go take an incredibly long shower and degrease myself. And hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. I'm showing you all the good, the bad, the ugly, the mistakes, the stupidness. Hey, you know what? If you guys have done anything like this before, you know, sometimes this is how it goes. But see it through. As always, drop a comment in the comment section below. Please do click on that like button. And hey, you know what? Sometimes we do things professionally around here too. So please do click on that subscribe button. You can see all kinds of builds that we work on. We'll see you next time, guys. Whew.